Thank you very much for joining us today and welcome. This is our fourth Leadership in Action webinar, and it's about managing it all while working from home. So we're very excited to have you with us today. My name is Izabela, and as part of the CTS team, I will be moderating this session. So for those that don't know Functional CTS, let me tell you a little more. So our vision is to make our clients better. And we work with all different industry clients to help them achieve their learning objectives. And on the other side, our mission is to actually enhance communities, employers, and individuals, people like yourself, people that actually can benefit from our training solutions, research assistance, or whatever else is that you may need. And we try to support everyone by assessing those needs, building relationships, and delivering quality training and services. So if there is anything that you think you may benefit from when connecting with us, please let us know and we'll be totally happy to support. We definitely value working with businesses, community partners, and amazing facilitators to deliver fully customized training and business solutions. Today, I'm very, very excited. We have a special guest speaker, Dr. Candice Miller. And I'm excited even more as she is not only hosting this webinar with me, but also she's leading a team that I'm currently working at. So that being said, Candice is actually leading a Functional Corporate Training Solutions and Functional Global teams, providing training and consultancy engagement for local and global organizations. And on top of that, from a little of a story about Candice, before joining the Functional family in 2007, she was a JK, SK, grade 1 and grade 6 teacher. Oh my gosh, wearing all different hats. And in 2010, she became a step parent to 2 active boys, now aged 18 and 12. And finally, in 2014, she welcomed a baby girl into their beautiful blended family. She definitely wore all the hats: teacher, parent, and employee. So enjoying the learning some practical tips, tricks, and get takeaways to help manage all different multiple hats. And so I'm honored to moderate this session for you. Just to let you know, we will have assigned time for some polling questions and overall questions that you may have. So you can share them in a chat as you feel that they're appropriate, and we'll try to get back to them as we move along in a session. So not stopping your presentation, Candice, any further, over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Izabela, for the warm welcome. I'm very excited to be hosting a webinar that on behalf of the CTS team. So to kick off today, we're actually going to start with polling the audience. I'd like to hear a little bit from each of you with respect to your children or little ones that you are supporting at home. So I'm going to actually have Izabela initiate the very first polling question for the group.
Okay. So the very first one, just give me a second, we're still learning the new software. Okay. Hopefully you can see the polling question, which is about, tell us the age of your youngest child. Okay, we have some mixed answers here. I'm actually glad to see that the majority of our group is in the age of 10 plus, which is exactly where I am today. So, okay, just couple more seconds, and then we'll end the poll. Can we have 3 more people to vote? Okay, so you should be able to see the results in a second. Candice, can you see the results as well?
Yes, absolutely. So it looks like the majority of our participants in today's webinar have children that are over the age of 10, with a few that have even the preschool age, which is a very exciting age, and then a couple in the 4 to 6 range, which is where my daughter is as well too. So great to know. I think today's session, we're going to cover all of those age ranges, mainly school age, not as much on the preschool side, but if you do have any questions at the end of today's session, I'd be happy to answer some of those with respect to the preschool ages. But for today's presentation, we're definitely going to focus on the role of sort of the school age children. So that would be 4 up to 10 plus. Okay, so in good fashion, what I wanted to do is start today's session. So Izabela, I'm still seeing the poll up on my end. Are you able to close that out?
Let me just double check. How about now?
I'm still seeing it on my screen, but I'm not sure if anyone else is seeing it on their screen. Maybe someone could give us feedback in the chat if you still see the polling results, or if it's just, I've got a couple of screens up, so I'm not sure if it's...
we've got some feedback. No one else is seeing
okay.
the poll.
All right, it's all good. It's only on my end. As long as it's only on my end, that's perfect. All right, so we're going to begin by, in good fashion of sort of teaching practices, which is engaging, inspiring, and sort of ice-breaking or warming up your group. Today, what we're going to do is a little bit of a group icebreaker to kind of get us started. So I thought we'd start with something a little fun and relevant to today's times. So what I'd like to do is we're going to do a little quarantine bingo to start off our session today to have some fun. So how this little activity works is that the very first person to get a line in any direction, so it can be diagonal or across, by reading, you have to read all of the different aspects on it and checking off each of those activities. So if they apply to you in a full line, please type in the word bingo into the Zoom chat with the first box. So you'll see in a moment that there are boxes with different things in it. So one, for example, is ran out of toilet paper is the first box in the line. And then the last box in the line that you check off, you would also include a little bit to that regard, just to tell us what line you have basically. And the example here would be messed up your sleep schedule. So the fun part about all of this is just to have a little bit of fun with each other. And then of course, in good teacher fashion, there will also be for the winner a fabulous virtual prize. So are you ready? I will now post the quarantine bingo on Go.
So let's see who will be the first, who will be the winner today. Hope you can see all the answers clearly. And so whoever got all the lines up, as Candice said, you can just put it in the chat and we'll be there. Oh, I think we have a first person, Jessica, saying second line. Jessica, can you just confirm, does it mean that you actually have a bingo on the second line? Yes. So, Candice, that was a very, very fast answer. Straight across.
Okay, perfect. Well, really fun to start it off. And I'm sure many of us kind of are relating to a lot of those different scenarios on the quarantine bingo. But congratulations to Jessica. So Jessica, you will now receive your fabulous virtual prize. So here you are. This is your virtual sticker. So congratulations, Jessica. Teachers always love to give out stickers. So we're very excited to award you today with the special prize, and you can after the session download that and keep it on your wall of stickers if you would like. So congratulations, Jessica, and thank you everybody for your willingness to participate in opening up today's session with something a little fun. So now I want to get into the actual presentation. So to start off the presentation, what I thought would be helpful is to begin with sharing a little bit of information about myself. I appreciate Izabela giving a warm introduction, but I know it can be really hard to be wearing all these various hats: teacher, parent, employee. Because me personally, I've worn these hats in a variety of different ways, and today I'm currently wearing again all three hats at the same time. So just a little bit about me. The very first picture there as a teacher, this is one of the shots that I pulled out from my archives of when I was teaching in 2003 in a kindergarten class in the Avon-Maitland District School Board. And this was an example of some of the students we were working on a holiday craft, which was a lot of fun. And then in the middle there is a photo of my 5-year-old daughter and I. And this was taken a few months back when we were still doing reading logs after school. This is a picture of us doing reading together from one of her school readers. And then the third is a picture that was recently taken in November, pre-COVID situation, with the Fanshawe CTS and Fanshawe Global teams at one of our professional development days. So I know that the mere thought of kind of doing it all, teacher, parent, and employee, can be super stressful and very overwhelming, especially during these challenging times. But what I'm here to do today is really to share with you what I say are really my top 7 tips and tricks that I've gained over the years of experience working in these various roles to help you hopefully take away some things to help you manage it all from working at home. One thing that I will do before I get into the details, I do have a full disclaimer with today's presentation. I can definitely say I am not an expert in parenting, as some days are better than others, as I'm sure all of us can relate to. But what I have learned is that wearing the other hats, the teacher and the employee and leader within an organization, has definitely helped me. And I hope today that it will help you take away a few ideas as well that you can potentially use at home. So tip number 1, as I'm going to go through 7 tips, Candace's 7 tips for the day. Routine, 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 but if it doesn't work, you got to just remember to go with it. So in good teaching fashion, what I thought I would present to you here today is a small math lesson or problem. So as a mathematical equation shows you here, one thing that is very familiar to all of us in a variety of different roles that we play is routine is very familiar. So whether you're at school, you're parenting, or at work, really the common answer or a common denominator is really routine is familiar and is part of everything of what we do. So because we are so familiar with routine, routine is really a good place to start in times of uncertainty, as it provides us with a sense of stability as well as security. And a best practice to follow for you and your children could be to try to keep to a similar routine for example, with morning routines or eating or nighttime routines, things that you did pre-isolation. So things like getting up, getting ready, having breakfast, and so on in a similar way helps to ensure that there's continuity in routines. As we all know, schedules really drive pretty much everything that we do these days, whether it's school, parenting, getting kids to extracurricular activities that we used to do pre-COVID after school, and as well work. Work is very schedule oriented. So keeping an aligned schedule can be helpful to manage and assist in keeping motivated as well as positive through it all. Just wanted to provide you here with a little example of a schedule that we put together. So again, my child is in SK, she's 5 years old. We put this in place for our daughter, and please forgive me, everything right now for my 5-year-old daughter has to be unicorns and rainbow colors. So you will see throughout this presentation today that there's lots of marker and rainbow throughout it. But this is as an example of how we try to provide some consistency for everybody in our house, and allows also for me to work around her schedule when it comes time to scheduling my own meetings. So right now, this is typically her outdoor time, as you can see on the schedule. Unfortunately, today isn't, so they've actually gone downstairs to play in the playroom, but it allows me to work around what I know she's going to be working on as well throughout the day. That being said, what's really important here is to give and allow yourself and your family some flexibility. So don't be so rigid about it. If it doesn't go as planned each day, that's totally okay. I know in my house, for example, as you can see, wake up time is 9 to 10, get ready, all that kind of stuff, because what we've been experiencing in our house is a much, much later bedtime than what we used to have for school days. And even yesterday, I was the only one that didn't get a chance to do this, but the rest of the family decided that it was a good idea to have an afternoon nap, which just happened naturally, and that was okay. And it's very rare because, especially my daughter, she never napped even from baby. So to see her nap yesterday was a rare thing. So knowing that you're just gonna kind of go with the flow, but set up some routine, keep flexible within that routine, and understand that due to all the things that we're now experiencing, things are gonna change, and that's simply okay. So on to tip number 2. Remember that your living space is now not only your home office in many people's cases, but it's also now your child's classroom, gymnasium, as well as their indoor-outdoor playground. So in my view, what's really important here is to carve out some physical designated spaces in your home for everyone. So I provided a few pictures here of what's going on in our home. So as you can see in the first photo there on the left, I've completely taken over the dining room table, which is where I'm hosting this webinar today. I strategically have positioned my home office in the dining room, which is significantly enough away from my daughter's playroom, as well as her classroom space. So as I said, my daughter's in senior kindergarten, so she's less dependent on the use of the computer and sort of the e-learning that's happening. So she's actually decided to set her classroom up, as you can see in the middle photo there, where she's most comfortable, which is on the living room floor in front of the fireplace. And then we are fortunate enough to have a basement and a designated play area for her to be more active. So when she wants to have more active play, she can go to the basement, as you can see there in the third picture. Now, even if you have a smaller space or a single floored home, you can still do it all by creating these different assigned spaces in your home for a variety of various activities and needs. The other thing that we also did in our home is we designated some common spaces as well. So we said the kitchen table is not where you're going to do homework. It's not where mommy's going to be doing any work or anything like that. That's, as well as the family room in our home, we all agreed that that space is sort of neutral, and it's for everyone to enjoy, to gather, to interact, to eat, to play, to do whatever. So having common spaces as well as your own designated classroom and workspaces is really important. So in our home, we don't have the luxury of closing the door for privacy, so I'm not tied up in a room. We have a bit of a more open concept. So what I find helpful while working at home is using headphones for calls or virtual meetings like I am here today. And then if it's a super important call, and I know that there's going to be disruptions going on because I have my daughter's schedule in mind, I usually let my family know in advance, hey, I'm going to have an important meeting. Maybe we could look at where you are in the particular schedule, maybe going outside or downstairs. And then I also, as a best practice, usually let people know, hey, okay, you know what, today's a rainy day. My daughter's stuck inside. If there's lots of chaos going around behind, I apologize in advance. We're just kind of trying to do what we can do to best adjust to the situation. So I make them aware of any potential disruptions that may be happening. But all in all, my best advice to you would be to figure out really what works best for you and your family. If you try something and it doesn't work, I encourage you to try something different. Don't give up. Try a different arrangement. Also, if you like variety, you can try rotating to different spaces throughout the day, because that helps to also keep little ones, or to keep you as well, busy, engaged, active, and sort of refreshed as you go throughout your day. So on to tip number 3, create learning moments from everyday activities. This is one of my favorites, I would say, as it really is a true kind of teacher moment, but really addresses everyday needs and things that you're doing. So as we all know, eating is mandatory for everyone, no matter what role you're going to play, a teacher, a student, a parent, a worker, you have to eat every day. So a great example is cooking. So cooking is a great way to engage children of all ages. And it's also, believe it or not, an excellent math and literacy lesson. So for this particular type of activity, parents can be teachers while also being parents while making their lunch during their work break. So it's kind of an all-in by wearing all 3 hats at once. So I have provided here in this initial diagram some examples for SK, JK students all the way up to grade 8. So it does include the 10 plus year old students. So what I've done is I've leveled it. I've given a learning expectation in accordance and in alignment with the Ontario curriculum document. And then I've also provided a sample activity that you can do with your child while making lunch, which actually meets the Ontario curriculum learning objectives. So these examples that I'm providing today, they all align with the math curriculum for the most purposes. And specifically, I'm focused in, there's a variety of different strands within the math curriculum for grades 1 to 8, and I'm specifically focused in on the measurement strand. So what I'll do is I'll kind of walk us through each of the levels and give a description of the learning objective as well as the activity for your different aged children. So for me, JKSK is really important right now with my 5-year-old daughter at home. The kindergarten program is very different than grades 1 to 8 in accordance with the Ontario curriculum or ministry standards. It's very inquiry-based, but there is still a requirement in one of the strands to actually demonstrate literacy and math behaviors for JKSK students. So something simple that we do as an activity, my daughter loves to make pizza. And we love to have pizza at lunch, at dinner, at all times of the day. So what's great to do is an activity with her is to describe the sort of process for sequencing the items in the recipe. So what comes first, what comes second, what comes third. So first we have to have the shell, the pizza shell, then we apply the sauce, and then we put the cheese on top. So she's able to properly sequence and identify the different order in which we make the pizza. So believe it or not, that's demonstrating math behaviors according to the kindergarten curriculum. And then from a literacy perspective, a way to integrate literacy to it, I would get her to describe the experience that she had making pizza orally. So something that she might say is, I had fun making pizza for lunch with my mom. And then if you wanted to extend the oral literacy component to a written, you could get her, which we do, is we've got a little journal book for her, and she just tries to write. She just sounds it out herself. She tries to sound out, say, writing down that same sentence. I had fun making pizza for lunch with my mom. She tries to write that same thing down in her journal book. So that actually, a very small activity like that can actually meet the learning expectation of the kindergarten program while also having lunch. So now I'll take you through grade 1. So the learning expectation for grade 1 students under measurement is to order ingredients by measurement, by their measurement. So specifically, what I would suggest doing here for an activity is whatever sort of you've planned out for lunch, you would have your child measure out the ingredients. So for example, if they're adding a teaspoon or a tablespoon or half a cup, the ideal situation is to have something that has multiple different measurements. And then what your child would do is once you've actually measured out the ingredients, the child would then put it in the order from smallest to biggest to see the difference between the sizes of measurement. And that actually meets the learning expectation for grade 1. So something kind of fun to do as you're making lunch with your grade 1 child. And for grade 2, tell and write time using the quarter hour. So that's also part of the measurement in the Ontario curriculum in the standards. So it's be handy if you have a second hand clock. We have one right beside our kitchen table. So have your child say and write the time. For example, when does lunch hour begin? When are you starting to eat your lunch? What time have you finished your lunch? And what time have you cleaned up your lunch? And then they can record that as well as tell you, we started lunch at 12 o'clock, we started lunch at 12:15, and we finished lunch at 1:45. So they're then demonstrating the use of quarter time with respect to the schedule of the lunch hour. Moving on to grade 3, the learning objective or expectation is to identify benchmarks of temperature. I really like this one. This is a good one if you're making spaghetti or some kind of noodles for lunch, something where you have to bring bring water to a boiling temperature. So you would have your student observe and watch the water as it goes through various states. So identifying the water temperature when it's cool, get them to describe what it looks like, what's happening in the pot. And then as changes are happening with the water getting warmer and then getting hot and then reaching a boiling point, the idea would be is that your child would be identifying maybe how long does it take, what does the water look like, describe its differences, when it starts to get warm, you see it slightly moving, there's maybe bubbles forming on the bottom of the pot and so on. So they're really needing to identify different ways in which they can measure and observe temperature changes with waters. So that's fun if you're ever interested in having if you have a grade 3er at home and you want to mix some noodles, that's a great exercise to do for lunch. So with grade 4s, they're required under the measurement strand to estimate, measure, and record capacity of different containers. So this one can be fun. You can do this on multiple days as well too. So you could pick different types of containers that you have each day for lunch. So things could be a glass, a bowl, maybe even a juice box, a can that you're cooking something with, and then have your child estimate and then measure and record and have them maybe create like a little table. So every day they can compare different types of container sizes, and then you record all those results of the lunch that you made together. So they're actually doing all 3 things, estimating, measuring, and recording by using the table throughout lunch. For grade 5 students, the expectation is solving problems involving relationships between the 12-hour clock and the 24-hour clock, which is fun. So one thing that you could do is ask your child some questions around time. So we started lunch at 12 p.m. So is 12 p.m. the same or different on the 24-hour clock? Or you could ask them to solve problems like, if we finish lunch at 1 p.m., what time is that on the 24-hour clock? And then you can describe some strategies and best ways for them to help answer that particular question. But it's demonstrating than their understanding and relationship between 12-hour and 24-hour clocks. And then finally, we have grade 6, 7, and 8. So for a student in grade 6, the measurement expectation in mathematics is to solve problems requiring conversions from larger to smaller metric units. So something that is really fun to do is you could get a variety of different food labels that you're working with for making your lunch. And what you would want to do with the food labels is look at the serving sizes on the food labels and then discuss with your child how many people can be served based on the units in the box or on the can. So that can help them convert from a larger to a smaller metric unit. And you can do that over different days and introduce different food labels so that they are demonstrating their understanding on an ongoing basis of how to do that. For grade 7, the expectation is to solve problems that require conversion between metric units of measure. So kind of fun question that you can ask your student if you were pretending, you can do some imaginative play as well, that it's Mama's Lunch Deli and they're coming to Mama's Lunch Deli to get some cheese, and cheese is on sale today for $11.50 for 1 kilogram. So getting them to solve the problem of how much would it cost to purchase 150 grams of cheese, so that you can measure and ensure that they can convert between kilograms to grams, and they can demonstrate that through basically a word problem, but also some imaginative play as you're sort of framing it all in Mama's Lunch Deli. And then finally, grade 8, this is probably the best in my opinion, because they're a little bit more independent, of course, and you can actually get them to make lunch for you. So the learning expectation for grade 8s is to research, describe, and report on applications of volume and capacity. A way that you can have your student do it all with respect to that is have your child research and choose a new recipe for lunch. They can measure out the ingredients themselves, prepare all the ingredients, and then they can actually cook lunch for the family, of course, well supervised. But you will see that they will not only gain the benefit of researching and being able to report on the different capacities of how much it takes from a tablespoon to a cup of this, that to add into the recipe, but then it can be a family affair where the whole family gets to join in and benefit from that activity by having a new fun lunch all together as a family. So one thing I just like to point to that kind of summarizes how you can take an everyday activity like lunch and actually meet the learning outcomes of the various grades with respect to the mathematical measurement strand. But if you're not familiar with the Ontario curriculum documents, I'd really suggest that you have a look at them. I've provided a link here on the slide which shows you where all of the curriculum documents are found online, specifically for elementary, but they're there for high school as well if you have someone who is older that you need to meet learning outcomes there. But the curriculum documents are actually separated by grade as well as subject for elementary school children. And really, if you have not seen this before, it is a really important thing to have a look at. And I encourage you to take a look through it, because it not only helps you better understand the expectations of your child to support them in their learning while they're at home, but it's actually more importantly for the expectations of what they're doing and what they're learning at school, especially when you're not there with them. So it's a twofold benefit for you, as in the current situation, but also from a parenting perspective while they're in school. Okay, so I thought this would be a great time to have a quick pause, and I'll turn it over to Izabela to ask our next audience poll question.
Okay, just trying to pull this up. Okay. Poll number 2, and launch is on. So are the tips so far realistic in that you can see yourself giving them a try? Having a grade 8 child at home, I definitely enjoyed the aspect of giving them more independence. Okay, I think that almost everyone voted, and I am sharing it right now.
Excellent. Thank you, Izabela. So this is great news. Thanks for the feedback, everyone. It appears as though 91% of you would see them being realistic and see yourself giving them a try at home, which is great. One is sort of in a maybe situation. Love to hear from you after if there's any obstacles that you would like to share. But in general, it's great to hear that you're seeing these being applicable to your world right now. Okay, so I'm going to continue on with the remaining tips. So tip number 4 is to be creative, and being creative is really good for everybody. So being brave and trying something new is excellent for everyone, not only for your child is it fun, but it's also actually by research, it says it's good for you as well. So the research does point out that being creative helps to keep our minds focused. It helps to reduce stress and depression and anxiety. And in addition, it really just makes us overall just happier. It can also boost your immune system, especially in times like these when it potentially means the most to us. And believe it or not, it can actually make you smarter. So if you are interested later, I've included here a link to a really short Forbes article that highlights some of these points and that describes some further links to studies and general information if you want to know a little bit more about how creativity is beneficial to people. But I just wanted to provide you with one takeaway example of a way that you can be creative at home with your kids. So one of the things that we use especially in early education, like in JK, grade 1, we introduce the use of stations or areas in which students have a variety of different places where they can play, whether it's a reading station or a sand and water, things like that. That notion of using stations can be used for any child. And then when you introduce the use of a timer, it makes everything even more exciting. So for whatever reason, with kids these days, the use of a timer, the idea of kind of having a competition or an ability to achieve something within a given time is super exciting and motivating. So today I've given an example with my daughter. What we've done is we've co-created the list of stations, as you can see here on the left-hand side, again in rainbow. We've got about 15 different stations, and we've done this together. But her responsibility is that she has to set up her different stations. So she knows where her baby station is, her Lego station, her Peppa Pig castle station, and so on. And then my responsibility in all this is to work the timer. So I just use my cell phone timer, super easy to use. And as a parent and in the back of my mind as a teacher at heart, I always make sure that there's a blend of play and school related activities on the list. Otherwise, I know with my daughter, all 15 stations would be Peppa Pig, LOLs, and Shopkins right now. But I have ensured that we've got books, reading, coloring, puzzles, math, games, and so on incorporated in her various stations. So how this activity works is that starting with station 1, which is baby, she would have 15 minutes to play with her babies. So I am the timekeeper, and once the timer goes off, she then has a responsibility of checking off the station, which is great for fine motor skills as well. She checks it off, and then she moves to the next station on the list, and I'm responsible for resetting the timer for another 15 minutes. So this activity I find is really great, especially if you're working home alone. I did this one day when I needed to work home, and my daughter was actually at home that day as well. But it allowed her to be more independent and allowed me to have more one-on-one time with the tasks that I needed to do at work. But it can also be used with parents to enjoy this activity together with your child. The other good thing is it takes up a lot of time. Yesterday, we were doing stations. She didn't get through all the stations. It's not the expectation that someone would need to go through each and every one of the stations. However, we did a few stations and then we decided to move it on to the next day. But it takes up a lot of time, and it also helps to keep the kids less bored. They're constantly moving, and they're working towards keeping on track with a clock and a scheduled list of activities. So it's quite kind of quite fun to do, but also beneficial for parents and educational as well. So tip number 5, find time for everyone to be active. Being active while working from home is really important and super great for everyone. If possible, what we do is we try to make it a family affair. As you can see, even the dog joins in to go outside as well. That's our dog, Lily. And then when it's raining, what we do is we modify the activities by staying inside. But try to get out as much as possible, at least 1 or 2 times a day. It's best to get out. We just go into our backyard for some fresh air and outdoor play. The idea with being outside is really just to keep it super simple. No matter what age a child is, being fun, going outside and being outside is super fun. So what we do is we kind of treat it like recess at school. So some games that you might want to play that are super simple are red light, green light. You don't need any activities, any equipment or anything like that. Hide and seek, tag, race, or even if you have a little bit of gardening to do. The other day, I got my daughter to help pull some weeds with me, and so she was doing some gardening with me as well. So it was a bit of a great thing for me and an interesting thing for her to do and us to do together. Now, like today or other days when it's super cold or rainy outside and you have a quote unquote indoor recess, you can also do some, things around the house that are active as well. Simple things like household chores. One of the things that my daughter does is she's responsible every week for watering all the plants. Lots of families do yoga. We watch some videos for that. We also have some books that incorporate some yoga moves as well. Family workouts, exercising, even simple things like building a little obstacle course or a fort inside your house is fun as well to keep active with your kids. And also very simple things like following the leader around the house is also fun for all the different age groups. Bottom line here is to remember to really take breaks throughout the day for everybody's sanity. And if all else fails and it's too hard to get outside, because I know that's been one of my challenges is kind of, when is it time for me to get off the computer and get outside and join the family while they're out enjoying the sun? If all else fails, make sure that you find something to do each and every day that makes your family and each other laugh. Just have a good laugh. Laughing is a great way to be active and to have fun as well too. So tip number 6, keep it fun. So kind of along that active line. Everybody these days, I don't know if you've been following social media, but people love a good challenge. So on social media, these days I'm seeing people post different posts with photos, encouraging others to accept a challenge in different ways. I've seen things like #Sally challenge or the photos of like 10 days life is good challenge or 10 days of motherhood challenge photos or 10 days, 10 photos, no explanation challenge. And the list goes on and on and on, right? You know that everybody's really keen on these social media challenges. So what I encourage you to do to keep it fun is to create your own challenge. So one of the things that happened to us during this pandemic situation is during March break, our family had just simply planned a 1-day road trip. We wanted to get away to some of our favorite places and to see things nearby, but unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we had to cancel our trip. So rather than giving up, what we did is we decided to create our own indoor road trip. And we posted pictures of our journey along the way, just like we would have done on Facebook and Instagram with our friends and family, so that they could sort of participate and join in the fun. And we encourage them to do the same thing. So you can see here the very first picture, again, in good rainbow fashion. These are the stops that my daughter wanted to stop at, 1 through 10. We had a picnic lunch in the park. The second picture there is a picture of our second stop along the way, which is the Witch's House Tea Party, which she loved to do. And then the third one there is an example. Unfortunately, the day that we decided to do our indoor road trip, it rained outside, even though we had planned for an outdoor obstacle park adventure on stop 5. We couldn't do it, so we improvised, and I created a little obstacle course that went down the hallway and back around the corner, as you can see there in post picture number 3. So I would just encourage your friends, try something new, to join a challenge, try to think of something that might be fun for you and your friends and family. It can also help lift the spirits and keep each other connected, as it's really important to stay connected while we're social distancing as well. And finally, tip number 7 is really from me to you. It is, don't sweat it, just do what you can. I know that during this difficult time, we're all dealing with the impact of daily changes, whether it's numbers related to COVID cases, extended closures, or legislative impacts. Everything is really overwhelming and can be sometimes worrisome and even emotionally draining for all of us. So what I say to you is just remember what's super important is to be kind to yourself, to take care of your own mental health and your own well-being first and foremost, so that you can really be there for your friends, your family, your children, and your work teams during this difficult time. To be honest with you, no one has the perfect answer for managing all the hats that we are currently wearing at home during this unprecedented time, but hashtag, we're all in this together. So every little small tip and trick, I believe, is really worth a try. So that concludes my presentation. I'm going to end today's session with our third and final poll question that I'll turn back over to Izabela to initiate.
So I am getting it ready, launching the polling now. Thank you very much, Candice. And now you should all be able to see the question, which is, what tip did you find the most useful from today's presentation? I can see some answers popping in right away. Tip number 7 is so far very spreading up. Okay, just a few more seconds. We almost have all of the votes. Okay, very good. So I'm ending it now, and you should be able to see the results right now.
Excellent. So it looks like tip number 7, don't sweat it, do what you can, is the best advice anyone can give. I would really agree. I'm glad to also see that the variety of tips, for the most part, were helpful for some people. So I just wanted to say thank you all for participating today. I hope you enjoyed our time together. I just want to leave you with one final quote from one of my favorites, Michelle Obama. Her quote is, "Don't be afraid, be focused, be determined, be hopeful, and be empowered." So thank you again, everybody, for participating. I'm now going to turn it back over to Izabela for a short sort of 10-minute Q&A, and I'll allow her to open up the virtual floor, I guess, for any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Candice. It was a great presentation, so I've learned a lot myself. So now over to everyone else. If you have any questions, please share them in chat box, and then Candice will be kind enough to maybe add additional tips that could be relevant to you. So we have 10 more minutes, and on top of that, as you can see on the screen, if you have any additional questions, if there is something that we as the Financial CTS can help you with, please reach out to us as well. So Candice, we can see some comments. I will cook with my grandchildren, great learning for them. From the employee perspective, one question we have here from Rosa, how to manage mental health and productivity levels?
Oh, that's a huge question. I think kind of the final tip that I gave, which everybody kind of agreed is probably the most useful tip, is remembering to not sweat it. Really, just do what you can. In this situation, for all of us, including our own governments, things like that. Things are changing on such a rapid basis. We're getting updates regularly. I think, helping maybe using some change management strategies can help you to potentially mitigate sort of the outcome of significant changes impacting your mental health. But all in all, you have to take care of your mental health first and foremost. That's my biggest thing, is that if you are not healthy and well and feeling good, it will impact your family, your work, and so on and so forth. So whether it's taking a break or whatever works for you, talking to people, talking to a professional, seeking help, things along that nature are really what I would suggest. Is that if it's getting to you, and I know that it can be super challenging, to reach out to some professionals to seek some help and some guidance and support through this challenging time.
Very good point. I just wanted to add, on top of that, we're actually planning to do some other webinars related to mental health and overall well-being. So in 2 weeks, there is already a session scheduled. I'm just working on my Eventbrite, and it will be about managing stress and especially getting some tactics and tips not to go crazy throughout all those situations, and know how to react rather than just go with the flow and take it from there. And we have some other sessions that will come along the line more in relation to mental health as well. So if you haven't done it yet, follow us on Eventbrite, because you will get some additional notifications on there. Candice, I have one other question, which is, that's a very interesting question from Sarah. How do you manage the school's expectations?
Yeah, I think one of the things is that right now, especially with the children getting a variety of different aspects online or in Eventbrite or things like that, I think communication with the instructor, one of the struggles that the teachers, I will probably admit right now, is that they've been just thrown a curveball just as fast as we've been thrown a curveball. They have no idea in many cases, and they're just learning on the fly how to do online learning, how to engage in an e-learning environment, and so on and so forth. So they're really reflecting in action, is what we call it in the trade, so to speak, of teaching. Is that, if there is too much work going on, what I would do as a parent is I would provide direct feedback. I know that in the case of my daughter, my teacher doesn't actually engage much online, but I feel comfortable because I've got resources and understanding and knowledge of what needs to be done. But my sister-in-law, as an example, is a kindergarten teacher. So one of the things that she said is that you've got to listen to your parents, because this is all new to everybody. Teachers can't expect parents to do 5 hours worth of work in a day when it's unrealistic. So my advice to you would be, give the feedback directly to your teacher that, hey, this is a little bit of an unrealistic expectation. And then what we need to do as instructors is adjust to the styles and the needs of the students and the parents. So because everything is new to the teachers, and I know that my sister-in-law was saying that they're getting snippets of teaching that they have to do, or training that they have to do every day on how to do online training. It's overwhelming for teachers. Can you imagine the teachers that have to teach their own class and then teach their own kids at home as well too? I can't imagine all that's going on. So my best advice would be is give feedback back to your teacher saying that, hey, this is a little bit unrealistic, or this day was good. That was the right amount of work to do with my child. But when you went to the next step, it was a little bit too much, because they're going to need that feedback to adjust their lessons.
Perfect, very good. Thank you very much. I can see we have just a few more minutes, and I have one more question, Candice,
Sure.
And it's a very, very specific in regards to the schedule that you've shared. So how could we manage that great suggested schedule, thank you very much for feedback, 2 children, 3 and 5 years old, while one partner is working full-time and the other one is doing a job searching?
The managing of the schedule that I had provided. So one of the things that that we can do is that when I had said aligning your schedules, so if you have, like right now in my situation, my husband is an essential service worker. So he is required to go to work one morning a week, but then is at home with my daughter. So, and then I work full time. So we're able to kind of balance that out because the 2 boys don't live with us on a full-time basis. But what I would suggest, if you're a parent at home on your own and you don't have any other support, or both parents are busy doing work, what you have to do is just find a balance. One of the things that I would suggest is that having a discussion or a conversation with your employer that, hey, I'm at home by myself, or, you know, we're in a situation where we have 2 working, or 1 working and 1 needs to be looking for work on a full-time basis, and just be open and transparent that, you know, my regular 9 to 5 day might not look the same this time around, and talk to your employer about what your specific needs are. So one of the things that I would suggest is that what we have done is that on Tuesdays, when my husband is out, what we do is I block that as desk time for myself, so that I know that I'm not going to have a whole list of meetings back to back where I can't be interrupted, or it would be disruptive to be interrupted by my daughter. So we've kind of figured out a way to balance out the schedule. So sometimes you might have to be more so with your child during the day, just like we are with parents. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job. Sometimes we have to shift and adjust to maybe doing some work in the evening and then spending the time with your child during the day. I think it's just finding the right balance with you and your family. So maybe your husband spends the first hour searching intensely for jobs. You're then maybe in a situation where that person could do some independent. I also say, if you have a 3-year-old and they're still napping, by all means use nap time to your best benefit. If you have a 5-year-old that's a little bit more independent while your 3-year-old is napping, use that time to get online and do something while your child can be more independent. And then when the child gets up from a nap, either you take on sort of some responsibilities there and just balance it out between you and your husband. But you can't expect to be perfect, and you can't expect that everything's going to go every day super well, but being flexible, being open-minded, and really doing what you can is the best advice I can say.
Very good, and I totally agree. I think the only last piece is working from home. We all know every day is different, and what we've experienced yesterday could be different tomorrow. So being able to adjust to day-to-day life, it's definitely important. Thank you very much, Candice, for being with us today, and thank you everyone else for joining our session. On the screen, you also see some social media places that you can follow us, so please do. This way you'll be able to be notified about any other upcoming sessions or activities that Financial CTS has to offer. And on top of that, if you have any questions, if you have any ideas or feedback for future activities as well, please email us, send a message through social media, and we'll do everything we can in our power to support you all. So thank you very much, and have a beautiful, hopefully we'll have more sunshine later on, beautiful day and the rest of your week. Thank you.